I should have stopped after the first transmission. That rusted ham radio wasn't meant to pull sound from the other side of Devil's Courthouse, but I'd been obsessed with those dead frequencies for weeks. Everyone in Brevard warns you about the cliffs out there. They say the mountain's name wasn't given by mistake. Cherokee stories mention something old and hollow beneath the stone, a cave no one finds twice. But I didn't believe legends. I believed signals. And at 2:03 a.m., beneath a moon too thin to trust, the first broadcast hit me like a slow, cold whisper against bone. The airwaves weren't empty. They were breathing. I sat there alone in my van, radio wired straight into a power bank, headset digging into my skin. Static faded, replaced by a hum, rhythmic, measured, not man-made. Then came the voice. Male, but slow, guttural, repeating something between words and machine code. Not in English, not in any language I knew. The signal looped every 7 seconds, each loop slower than the last. My equipment shouldn't have worked at that frequency, but the dials spun themselves, adjusting, aligning. My hands never touched them. The air inside the van thickened like fog, like I was breathing underwater. Every static pulse squeezed behind my eyes, and in the moments when the voice fell silent, I could hear something else behind it. A sound like grinding teeth, distant but steady. At first, I thought it was engine noise bleeding through. But it wasn't behind me. It was beneath me, from the ground. That's when the legend cracked through memory. Cherokee said the Devil's Courthouse wasn't hollow. It was hungry. The hum changed pitch, became sharper, closer to a scream than a tone, yet no decibel readings spiked. My bones felt it more than my ears. Then the voice cut through again, clear this time. Not a word. My name. Spoken slow, stretched over static. Michael. 3-second pause. Then again. Michael. My headset vibrated, ice forming on the plastic where it touched skin. I pulled it off, but the voice didn't stop. It came from outside, from the cliffs. And when I looked toward the peak, I saw a light. Not white, not yellow, not natural. Green, flat, steady as a tunnel mouth. It pulsed once with every loop of the broadcast. My brain told me to run. My body froze. That's when the voice changed. It stopped repeating my name and whispered something else. One word, one warning. Don't. Then the signal cut. Silence fell so hard, I heard blood roaring in my ears. My radio display fried itself in seconds. Plastic melted in thin streams down the panel. But the green light didn't fade. It waited. And then I understood. The voice wasn't broadcasting to me. It was broadcasting through me. I don't remember driving away. I remember headlights slicing fog, my breath like broken glass in my throat, and in the rearview mirror, long after Devil's Courthouse vanished from sight, I saw the green pulse one last time, matching my heartbeat. The second experiment wasn't my idea. After what happened near Devil's Courthouse, I buried the melted rig and promised myself it was over. But curiosity doesn't fade, it rots. A month later, a man calling himself Harrow showed up at my door. Said he tracked my signal logs. Said he'd heard the pulse too. He wore the wrong kind of clothes for backcountry. Everything too clean. His eyes never blinked at the right times. He wasn't there to ask. He was there to finish the broadcast. Against every instinct I had left, I followed him. We set up behind an abandoned fire tower east of the courthouse, where the tree line fractures into dead rock. Harrow didn't bring a normal radio. What he unpacked looked closer to a heart monitor, wires knotted like veins, a receiver plate carved from bone, not metal. He smiled when I noticed. "Calf scapula," he said. Resonates better than steel. Then he hooked it to a transmitter I swear hummed before power hit. At 3 a.m., he told me to wear the headset. I refused. He didn't argue. He said, "It's not for you anyway." The hum started low. Slow pulses that rocked the soil more than the air. Harrow angled the bone plate toward the cliffs, tuning for vibrations instead of sound. What we heard shouldn't have been possible. A voice, yes, but not broadcast. It was the mountain itself, answering. Not sound waves, pressure waves. The rock responded to his signal like a jaw unlocking, and in those slow seismic moans, words coiled beneath stone. I felt them rather than heard them. Warnings, numbers, names. My name, spoken backward. Harrow logged everything. The smell came next, ozone and something older, like wet leather left in fire. Then the pressure built. Not physical, mental. A weight behind my eyes, squeezing until I couldn't focus. Harrow knelt, pressing his palm against the bone plate, whispering as if coaxing a child. He told me not to look at the tower. But I did, and I saw them, inside the frame, where stairs should have spiraled upward. Shadows filled the hollow. Not smoke, not fog. Taller than men, swaying against the wind without moving. Their faces, no, their absence of faces, stared at me. Holes darker than the sky, wider than thought. Each shadow hummed in sync with the bone plate. Each hum matched my heartbeat. When Harrow screamed, I realized the broadcast wasn't being sent anymore. It was being received. The shadows weren't waiting. They were listening, and I was the signal. The climax came when Harrow's device cracked down the middle. Not burned, not broken. Split like bone under strain. The hum collapsed into silence so fast, my vision blacked out. When I woke, the fire tower was gone. Not burned, not destroyed. Simply gone. And in its place stood 7 posts hammered into bedrock, wrapped in copper wire, humming faintly in the morning cold. I crawled back down the ridge alone. Harrow was gone. But a week later, in my mailbox, I found a single strip of bone, carved with my name, and beneath it, 7 words, etched too deep to be written by hand. You were heard, and you were answered. ChatGPT John Noy. I should have known the third experiment wasn't mine to control. By then, I'd stopped sleeping. I'd stopped thinking. My world was nothing but echoes, of green light, of that humming silence, of Harrow's missing face. But something deeper had already rooted itself inside me. The desire to finish the signal. That's how I found myself standing again at the base of Devil's Courthouse, midnight cold, snow choking the old game trail as I dragged my last functioning shortwave rig through the dead trees. I didn't remember deciding to climb. I only knew that every part of me hurt if I stood still. At the summit, where the stone cracks open like broken teeth, I laid out the wires. I tuned the dial. I pointed the receiver toward the hollow cliffs where no voice should carry. I didn't turn the power on. It turned itself on. The static didn't come through the speakers this time. It bled from the rocks themselves. I felt it inside my teeth. The air warped sideways, thick as glass. And then came the voice, not through radio waves, through the stone, through the air, through my skull. It didn't speak English. It didn't need to. It was older than language, older than shape, and it told me what I already feared. The signal wasn't a message. It was a lock. Each broadcast opened another turn of the mechanism. Each reception wasn't communication. It was permission. The green light flared from deep within the courthouse hollow, not bright, but steady, like the world's deepest warning lamp. And the mountain itself began to pulse. My radio rig glowed white-hot without burning. The speaker grill melted in long, slow drips. My skin blistered where the sound touched. But I couldn't leave. I wasn't allowed. Not anymore. That's when I saw the doors. Not real ones. Not wooden. 7 gaps opening along the inner cliffs of Devil's Courthouse, tall as freight cars, rimmed with stones that weren't stones, shapes that hurt to stare at. And behind those doors, something waited. Not a creature, not a shadow. A signal. The pure, perfect broadcast. I understood then. Harrow hadn't summoned them. I had. And I was the final antenna. When the voice whispered my name a third and final time, I knew it wasn't speaking to me. It was speaking through me. The climax hit when the rock beneath me cracked. Thin fractures raced outward like the courthouse itself was splitting. My hands reached for the dials I hadn't touched, but they spun without me, tuning upward into frequencies I didn't know existed. My lungs locked. My skin froze. And from deep behind the doors, something bigger than sound answered. I remember screaming. I remember stone closing over me. And I remember waking up somewhere else. Dawn. Silence. I lay inside a spiral, carved perfectly into the earth, ringed by copper stakes. My gear melted to slag. My body burned. And in my left palm, freshly carved, the message waited. Broadcast complete. Signal received. Channel open. I don't know what I freed. I don't know where it is. But every night since, at 3 a.m. sharp, my house fills with a hum. And the last words it speaks aren't a warning. They're a countdown.